So Ray Dalio is saying that what's coming is going to be worse than what we saw in 2008 and maybe even worse than the Great Depression. So I suppose this is your warning. This is when you really need to start looking at this and taking it serious, because you certainly don't want to go through what I did in 2001. I mean, Ray Dalio breaks it all down. He talks about the monetary breakdown. He talks about the warnings that we all should be paying attention to when it comes to what's going on with currencies, trade wars, and not only that, simply the credit cycle. The other thing Ray Dalio talks a lot about is the internal divide, the divide among the people of the United States. I mean, you can see this. We've been seeing this now for going on 5 years. You've seen this massive divide, and that divide is not making any of this any better. We're going to cover this divide. We're going to cover the monetary breakdown. We're going to cover the money credit cycle. But most importantly, we're going to cover how you can get ahead of this, how you can protect yourself and your family. My name's Chris Naugle. This is What Now? What's next for you? So let me start this by going back to the early 2000s. You know, in my life, it was kind of a dream. It was like living a dream. You see, in the early 2000s, I was running Fat Man Board Shops, my dream business. It was a skateboard, snowboard shop, but at the same time, I was a professional snowboarder. So with the two of those combined, everything was doing great. We were expanding. We had just opened a brand new boutique in this ski town called Orchard Park. It was such a beautiful store. We spent a bunch of money. We were leveraged, I will say, but it was okay because we had the store, we had the inventory, and we had the sales. Until, I'll never forget this day. I had just landed from a trade show in California. And the next morning was Monday. I was in my car driving down the thruway, headed to my brand new store, which I loved working at. And all of a sudden on the news, I heard of a plane hitting a tower. And then another one. At first, I couldn't help but to think that it was just like a little plane had crashed into a tower, but it wasn't. It was a commercial airliner. And then when the second one hit, well, not only did the news know, but I knew we were under attack. You see, that was 9/11. And everything after that changed. Not just for me, not just for my businesses, but for everybody. We were in fear. We didn't know what was going on, and then we were in war. But let me take it back to my retail stores. You see, the months that followed that moment, actually the year that followed that moment, were a complete and steady decline. Business started falling off. You see, at this period of time, we were in a recession, or the beginning phase of a recession. You know it as the dot-com crash. I was living it. But I was living it for the first time in my life. You see, this is the very first recession that I even remembered. I remember there was prior recessions that mom and dad told me about, but this is the first one as an entrepreneur, the first one as a business owner, and the first one that I actually felt the impact of. And the result? Well, the result was I wasn't ready, not even close. I went into this recession completely unaware, completely unprepared. I didn't have any real money saved. Now, I was saving money. I had a pretty decent income, nothing great, but for me at that time, it was the highest income that I'd ever had in my life. I was saving a little bit of money into some mutual funds that were set up by an advisor that I knew. And, well, I was living my best life until retail sales plummeted. And to add to that, the street that this store was on, they just ripped it all up to put a brand new street in and new sewers, so people couldn't even really get to my store. So that just complicated issues. It got so bad that I couldn't make my bills at that location. I could barely make my truck payment. Now, bear in mind, I had a ZR2S10 back then, and the payment was a whopping, if I'm not mistaken, $199 a month. And I was having a hard time making that. So let me just pause. That was the first recession of my life that I felt. That was the first time I saw the impacts of what a declining economy or a declining stock market would mean for me, and it brought me to my knees. I went into survival mode. Now, the rest of the story you've probably heard, where I put my resume out and I ended up as a financial advisor, but that's not important. The one thing I want you to know is I was completely and utterly in survival mode, in fear mode. And I can tell you this, the one big takeaway, income does not equal wealth. Because your income can shut off tomorrow, and mine did. So I want to begin by saying what we all need to do, especially right now, is start to rethink money. What you need to start doing is paying yourself first, which is the complete opposite of what most of you do, because most of you pay all your bills first, all your loan payments first, and then whatever is left, well, that's what you save. But that is putting you last. And I think you should be first, which means you need to think about the way you do things and how you do things, and I'm going to show you the path on how to pay yourself first. Now, the simplest thing we need to first understand is how we operate around money. Here's what you've been taught to do from a young age straight to probably right now. You've been taught to work for money. You have literally been taught to go out, and you've been taught to trade your time. Hours is how we measure our time, for dollars. And whatever your dollars are worth to you, maybe your dollars are worth $20 an hour, maybe it's $100 an hour. Whatever your time is worth, that's what you trade. You trade your time for money. Now, if you continue to do that throughout your entire life, here's what will happen. You will run out of time. Quite figuratively, you will literally run out of time. And you will graduate, and I don't mean graduate from college or high school, I mean the big graduation. And I know you don't like thinking about that, but that is how it works. Time. But when you continue to trade time for money, there's some other things that happen. As you get older, or just as things happen in your life, you will have less time. You will need more rest. You will have injuries and sicknesses that will take away time. You see, your time is something you cannot ever get back. So what we really need to do is stop thinking about how we're going to get ahead and look at that as a sense of time and for money. We need to start looking at it as how do we make our money, this, work for us. You see, our money doesn't have limitations. Our money does not have to go to sleep. It doesn't have to take vacations. It doesn't have to go to the bathroom. It literally, quite literally, can work 24/7. But in order for your money to work for you, you must pay yourself first. And you must keep at least 10% of what you make. But most people, and this is statistics, this isn't my opinion, most people will never do that because they pay themselves last. And usually when you pay yourself last, there's never 10% left. But if you pay yourself first, keep 10% of what you make, and then figure out how to pay your bills and pay your loans and everything else after you pay yourself first, what you will find is that it will get easier. It will become the norm. At first, yeah, it's a change, and no change is easy. It is a 100% shift in your mindset, and it takes practice. It takes keeping yourself accountable, but just try it. Change it up. So here's one of the things that helped me a lot. When I started doing this, it was very difficult for me, because I was so used to working for money, and then I was used to paying my bills with that money, and then whatever was left is what I would keep. So when I shifted this, it felt like, oh my gosh, I was constricted. I didn't feel like there was going to be enough money. I remember many, many weeks and months where there was literally barely $100 left in my account. And I felt broke as a joke. And I almost went back to doing the other thing, but here's what I changed. You see, when I wanted extra money, instead of sacrificing, keeping my money, what I would do is go out and find a side hustle. And I know not all of you want to do this, and that was difficult for me too, but I would go out and I would do a landscape job on a weekend. Maybe I would help a friend put a roof on. These are back in those days where I was just willing to do whatever. So I did side hustles. That money was the money that I got to keep so that I didn't feel so broke. But eventually, keeping 10%, all of a sudden was the norm. And because I was keeping 10%, now I started building up a savings. Now comes the most important part. Make your money work for you. As that money started building up, I started making it go out and work for me. And I started with simple things like I would invest the money. I started buying real estate with that money. But here's how I had to look at that, because even that was foreign to me. I had to think of my money as little marching soldiers. And I would send these little buggers out to work. Actually, I would send them into battle, because that's what it was. Investing was a battle place. I would send this money into the battlefield. My little soldiers were out there working. And you know what they did? They multiplied. That's right. They multiplied. Partly because of compound interest, but also because they were working for me. So I took the interest and everything that they earned, and what I would do is I would put that money in that secret little account, that little segregated account that I didn't have a debit card or have access to. So now those little marching men were creating more little marching soldiers. And as those marching soldiers came in, they went back in and I sent them out to work. And what they do? Multiplied. And then they multiplied. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Now I know most of you are at the early stage of this, so this just sounds silly. But when you start doing it, what you're gonna think is silly is what everybody else is doing, because what you're doing actually makes a ton of sense. You're no longer focused on only working for money and trading time for money, because now you're still doing that, but now you're doing that in a smarter way because your money is working for you, taking the pressure of normal everyday bills off of you. This really is the secret, folks. But there are lots of pitfalls. Let me talk to you about some of the mistakes I made. And I made plenty of them, which is why I can actually sit here and speak to you about this, because I've gained the wisdom because of just failing over and over. Shiny objects. You ever see the Family Guy episode where Peter's going around, ooh, piece of candy, ooh, piece of candy, ooh, piece of candy,
ooh, piece of candy, ooh, piece of candy, ooh, piece of candy.
You remember that episode? That's you, because it was me as well. Every time you find out you got a little extra money, you start something new. It's a new shiny object. For me in real estate, it was like, ooh, we can flip houses. Ooh, we can buy real estate and rent it. Ooh, we can do wholesale. Ooh, we can do this thing. Ooh, we can do that thing. Oh, let's buy land and flip land. And all of a sudden, you're doing all these things, which are all draining resources, which all of a sudden, you feel broke again. So avoid the shiny objects. Focus on only two things that you know, you like, and you understand. So don't ever invest in anything that you don't know, like, and understand. Don't ever put your money in anything that you don't know, like, and understand. And I know many of you do this because I can go online and I can look at the statistics of how many people are investing in crypto and how many people don't even know, like, or understand what that meme coin is they invested in. They don't have the slightest clue what it does or what problem it solves. So the other thing that you're doing when you're investing in things you don't know, like, and understand is you're not protecting your wealth. You're blindly gambling with your wealth, with that money that you saved, that money that you decided to keep. You're gambling with it. But not only that, you're following the direction of the gurus and the influencers who maybe don't even understand what they're telling you about. Did you do the due diligence? Did you research the person? Did you go in and find out if there are any negative comments about them? You see, what I've learned is every time I'm looking to get into something or looking to invest in something and I'm learning from someone about it, I research the crap out of them. Reddit's a beautiful thing nowadays. You can find out just about anything about all the different people out there that are the gurus and the influencers, so look them up. A little Google search. AI is a great thing. You can learn about a particular investment or about a category that you want to invest in. You can learn very quickly with AI. So why aren't you? Oh, I know why. You're looking for a shortcut. You're looking for a quick fix. You're looking for a get-rich-quick scheme, or I should call it get-rich-quick scam, because there is no shortcuts to wealth. That you should write down. Grab a pen and write it down. No shortcuts to wealth. There are shortcuts to getting rich, but being rich means you're just going to be poor again. Wealth means that you have learned how not to give back the money that you've made. That is some wisdom right there. And here's another thing I'll tell you about wealth that's super important. Wealth is created when you learn how to solve a problem. What problem am I talking about? Somebody else's problem. So true wealth for every wealthy person you've ever seen came when they figured out the value in solving someone else's problem. There is not a company in the world that does not solve a problem for somebody else. The bigger the problem, the more wealth they have. Think about it. Everything you use. When Steve Jobs came up with this concept of this, I think it was like 10,000 songs in your hand, he solved a really big problem. Every single thing that we use, all the products and the services are there to solve a problem that somebody has. And again, the more you figure out the value in what it is you create to solve the problem, the more understanding you have about how much money you're going to be able to make and how much wealth you're going to be able to build. Because it's all about the value. But it's also very important for you to understand what it is you want. The idea that you planted in your mind, your dream. How many times do people try to steal that dream from you? Tell you that that dream is no good. Tell you that that dream will never work. How many times? Oh, it should be almost every day somebody's trying to tell you your dream's a terrible idea. And social media has just escalated that. You post your idea, your dream, your invention, your business up on social media, and look at what happens. The haters rush in. It's the world we live in. Ignore them. Because haters need hugs too, so show them love. Give them love, because they're probably angry because they're angry at themselves because they didn't do it. They don't hate your idea. They just hate something about themselves, and they're reflecting that on your dream. Another thing I'll tell you is that generosity, service that you give others, and legacy, those aren't extras, folks. Those are the path. Being a generous person and giving first without any anticipation or any want of getting back, that's the secret. When you start giving, you provide service to others, and because of that, you create a legacy bigger than anything you could ever leave. Because that legacy is a legacy of generosity. Let me kind of give you a little insight into how I was in that .com crash and how I was during 2008. I wasn't giving, not at all. I wasn't being generous because I was struggling. Can any of you relate? When you're struggling, do you feel like giving? When you're struggling, do you feel like going out and solving someone else's problem? Not at all. I didn't want to. I was so focused on me, my problems, my bank account, why I can't pay my bills, that I didn't focus on anybody else's, which all it did is it sped the whole downward process up. I crashed, folks, crashed and burned in 2008. I probably hit pretty close to rock bottom, and I hate that word because there is no bottom. Everybody's bottom's different. But how did I hit rock bottom? The boo-hoo mentality, the me mentality, that everybody should feel bad for me, and it's everybody else's fault. You know what? When all that happened and everything started going and business partners screwed me or this happened, I blamed them for my current situation. I literally got into this mode in 2008 where it was everybody else's fault. None of it was my fault. It was everybody else's fault. And I spiraled out of control. Please don't let that happen. It is an awful feeling. And it will only get worse until you shift it and you just start giving. And I know you're like, how do you give when you have no money? Give whatever you can. Give a smile. Give a hug. Those things matter, folks. You see, the universe doesn't know the difference, and nor does your mind. You're the only one that makes the barrier, the obstacle. You create the obstacle because it doesn't exist. Yeah, you might be in a rock bottom place. You might be in a tough place. The economy and the tariffs and, some people just blame it all on Trump. My aunt, literally, Trump is going to ruin the world. She literally thinks the world is going to end because Trump's in office. This is a mindset problem, folks, and I don't care if she listens to this because she needs to hear it. Somebody needs to tell these people that literally the world isn't going to end. That's all in your mind. You are perpetuating it. You are blaming everybody else for your own self-pity. Stop. Change it up. Just start thinking about generosity. Start thinking about the things that you have and be grateful for them. Start thinking about the problems that you can solve and do a better job of solving those problems. Give more. Give more smiles, because when you're miserable and you're broke and everything else, do you want to smile? Heck no. You want to be stone cold miserable. And that just perpetuates your situation. It truly does. You are gambling with your happiness right there and your money. And You're putting an energy out that's bringing everybody else down with you. And is this what you'd want for your kids? Always, for me, I have a little one. She's going to be 5 next month. All I do is when I'm in a negative place, all I do is I think about, how would my daughter view this? What am I teaching her? How am I portraying this image to her? Because that's what she sees, and your kids will do exactly what you do. So let's talk a little bit about today's economy and do a parallel back to 2000s during the dot-com crash and 2008, because those are the last 2 recessions we can really talk about. The pandemic was really a whole new beast all of its own. So back then, do you think there was people that were over-leveraged? Do you think people had high credit cards? Absolutely. Their credit card limits were really high. Not as high as today. You know where credit card debts are today? $1.2+ trillion, the highest ever. But that's not the problem. The problem are the defaults. Defaults are on the rise. They're growing quickly. As a matter of fact, defaults are the highest that they've been, get a load of this, in 14 years. If we take 2025 and we go back 14 years, where's that put us? Well, if you thought around 2011, you're right. What happened right before that? The Great Recession. People had a ton of debt. They were highly leveraged going into 2008, which means in 2010 or 11, 14 years, prior to now, people were in a very similar situation. But not only that, right now, you're in a rising inflationary period. I know some of that is escalated by the tariffs, but the tariffs are the obstacle that we have to go through to make this country stronger. Whether you believe it or not, the history proves it. That's right, the history books prove that tariffs very well could be one of the paths through the obstacle. Not the only path, but one of the paths through it. So just take it back to Ray Dalio, and by all means, watch Ray Dalio's videos on YouTube, get his books. But he talks about that political divide. And he talks about how if we can't come to a common ground, if we keep on with this political divide, we're gonna be in a much worse place than we were during the Great Depression. And I can tell you, you don't want that, I don't want that, he doesn't want that, nobody wants that. But yet, here we are. We keep dividing even more and more. We keep allowing social media to drive our decisions. We keep watching the fake news, but not only that, we keep accruing more and more liabilities. We keep racking up our credit cards. We keep taking on more loans. We keep buying new cars. What we need to be doing is building a safety net right now, but for so many, it's gonna be too late. We're already past the mark. But the best time to start is right now. As you know, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Next best time, right now. So get on with it. Stop being foolish. Stop thinking the world's gonna end. Literally, people are out there spending and spending and spending because they literally think the world's gonna end. I know this because within my family, I see this. That's a sickness, folks. That's what that is. So when you run the parallels and you go back to the dot-com crash and the Great Recession, it's very similar to right now. Matter of fact, if you really went back to the early 1920s, the roaring 20s, you could see the similarities all the way through right to 1929. X marks the spot. So here's the thing. Most people won't learn the lessons until it's too late. But because you're watching this video, I know you're not one of them. You're part of the 5%, maybe even the 1%. You're just simply different. Because you're trying to create, you're not trying to conform to the narrative, conform to what the media and the world wants you to do and wants you to be. You're carving your own path, you're blazing your own trail. So let me just ask you for a huge favor. Click that subscribe button right there. And while you're at it, there's a little bell up top. What I need you to do is smash that bell. As I always have said before, he looks a lot better like this, but you know what? You never want to hit a guy or a gal with glasses, so just take the glasses off, smash that little bell, and you'll be notified every time I put out new content. With that being said, let's go back and do a real quick recap. First, pay yourself first. That's the key. Put everybody else behind you. You're the single most important thing. You are the golden goose that lays the eggs, okay? Don't make no two ways about it. It's all you. So you must treat yourself as the most important and you must pay yourself first. Once you pay yourself first, keep 10% of that. and put it in a place that you don't have access. Maybe it's a specially designed and engineered whole life. Maybe it's a high yield savings account. I don't care what it is, but you want it to be somewhere safe where it will preserve your principal and preferably somewhere that can earn a guaranteed interest rate and give you uninterrupted compounding interest. And if you've watched any of my stuff, you know there's only one place that can do that, and that is the specially designed and engineered whole life. But then the second thing is you got to get those dollars out working for you. So why not use an account that pays you interest and dividends while the money is out working for you? Again, that is using the infinite banking concepts. Not going to get into it here, but these are things that you need to learn all about preserving principal, making your dollars work for you, and getting them soldiers, your dollars, out there in the battlefield, making more, multiplying. That's what we want them to do. You want to invest in things that you know, things that you like, and things that you understand. Do not invest in things that you have no clue what they are, what they do, or what problem they solve. Avoid the FOMOs, the emotional-based investment decisions. Just because someone says you should invest, just because Kramer comes on and says, oh, this is a great investment, do you realize he's wrong more than he's right? And I mean by a large margin. So don't follow the gurus. Follow your heart and follow the things you know, like, and understand. Build assets in your life that solve problems, real problems. If you've got an idea, a business, what problem does it solve? Get real clear on that, and then get real clear on how you can take that message to the masses. Because the problem that you're solving is what is going to lead you to wealth. And most importantly, teach your children. The ultimate legacy. The ultimate legacy isn't leaving a car for a kid or a house for a kid. Matter of fact, usually they don't want those things. Leave the legacy of knowledge and wisdom to your kids. Teach them everything we just went over in this video. Teach them how to apply it in their own lives at a young age or whatever age they are. Start now. But you can't start and be a hypocrite by telling them to do something that you yourself are not doing and following. You need to be the example, but you already know that. You already know that. And for those of you that are out there that sort of have that helpless feeling, you're not helpless, you just need a new plan. This is your new plan. Apply it and start with the basics. And I know looking down the barrel, we're looking down the barrel of a recession, but you know what? Here's the thing. A recession isn't the end, it's the beginning for most of you. Matter of fact, how about this? It's the beginning for all of you, but you must get prepared in order for that to be your revelation. They force clarity, they force you to think differently, they force you to hunker down and really start controlling your finances. But most importantly, that failure is what will teach you to never make the mistake again. You see, I have been telling people get out of the market for too long now. And then all I hear these same people doing, and I just heard it this past weekend during the holiday, they're complaining that they lost money. These are my family members complaining that they lost money in the markets, and they're blaming people. I didn't even say anything. Didn't even say anything, because to me, that's pathetic. How long have I been telling people take your gains off the table? Because it isn't about buying high and selling low, it's about buying low, selling high, and knowing how not to lose money. It's all about preservation right now. Preservation of your principal. So get on with it, folks. These are the lessons that will serve you for the rest of your life. And for those of you that want more, listen, I boiled everything down that I put into this video into a really great series on MSTV. That is moneyschool.tv. Get in Money School TV, learn the basics, but also learn all the advanced strategies when you're ready. So get onto MSTV, and that you can do for $19 a month. So check it out. Moneyschool.tv is the place, and all the answers are in there. Thanks for joining me today for another episode of What Now? What's next? If you like this one, check this video out right here, The Secrets of the Wealthy. We'll see you next time.